I'm Eric Price with LI-COR Biosciences, and today I'm going to show you how to calibrate your LI-600 Porometer fluorometer, specifically how to zero the instrument, telling the relative humidity sensors to read exactly 0 when they're seeing dry air. Now there are 3 main ways to do this. One would be using desiccant with an external pump. Another would be using a tank of dry air. Both of those methods are described in a separate video. The third method is using the LI-600's internal pump to flow air from a desiccant into the relative humidity sensors. This process is a little bit more involved than the other two, so if you have access to an external pump or a tank of dry air, I would recommend using that. But this process will still get you a great calibration. Now, there are a couple of things you need to get started. One would be a computer and the USB cable that came with the instrument. This will be necessary to tell the instrument to read 0. A Phillips screwdriver to remove a lot of screws, and I would also recommend using a bowl to keep all those screws together. We'd also recommend using gloves and or needle nose pliers or tweezers or forceps to remove the buffer beads. There are small beads inside the instrument that need to be removed so that they don't interfere with the calibration. Those beads should be placed on a Kim wipe or a sterile glass jar so that they are not going to get dirty. Last, you'll need the zero kit that came with the instrument, and you'll want to fill that up entirely with desiccant. We recommend using Dry-Rite. It can be indicating or non-indicating Dry-Rite, but make sure that it's fresh. You don't want to be calibrating with exhausted chemicals. So you'll want fresh Dry-Rite. We don't recommend using silica gel because it doesn't entirely get all the way down to 0. But Dry-Rite or similar desiccants will get you to that completely dry airstream. So with all of these things in place, we will start to take apart the instrument and remove those buffer beads. First, we will start by taking the 2 shells off of the instrument. There are 5 screws on the right side and 7 screws on the left side. And really, all you need to do is remove those screws with your Phillips screwdriver and empty them into the bowl. These screws are all the same size, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of which one is which. I've already gone ahead and loosened a lot of these screws, just like any good baking show, so I can show you quickly. Once you've removed those screws, the 2 halves of the instrument will just slide off like this. Now we have the filter cover. This is held in place by 4 screws, the same size as well. So we'll just remove those. Next, we'll remove the filter cover and set it aside. Here we can see the filter itself, as well as the larger pump cover around it. You don't need to actually touch this filter, but if you did want to remove it separately from the pump cover, I would recommend using gloves so that the oil from your fingers does not get on the filter and cause problems later on. So, one thing we can do is just remove these 4 Phillips screws from the pump cover, and the filter will come off with it. Again, these are the same size screws, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of which one is which. So now that we've removed the 4 screws, we can lift the pump cover and again set it aside. And now we can see the pump itself. This is a very small, almost like a microprocessor chip that is held in place by springs and a few pegs. And so you can remove that and set it aside as well. Now, inside here, inside this ring, we have 8 buffer beads. We need to remove those so that they don't interfere with the calibration process. For this step, you should use gloves or tweezers, forceps, needle nose pliers to remove them. Make sure to set them aside on Kim wipes or a sterile environment. Now that you've removed all 8 buffer beads, replace the pump cover, the filter cover for the next step in the calibration process. Once you've replaced the pump cover, and the filter cover, you'll next want to attach the zero kit using this length of tubing, which has a hose barb on one side, 1032 hose barb, and a quick connect fitting on the other side. You will connect the hose barb into this smaller aperture here, like that. And then this quick connect fitting connects to the zero kit like this. So now we have air that's going to flow through our desiccant into our instrument. The last thing you'll need to do on the hardware is to clamp on to a piece of plastic or laminated paper so that we get good airflow to both relative humidity sensors. Clamp onto the plastic just like you would any leaf and turn the instrument on. Then connect the instrument to the computer using the USB cable that came with the instrument. If you have the LI-600 Windows or Mac software open on your computer, it will automatically detect that an instrument is connected, so you'll want to click on Explore LI-600. In the top left corner, you'll see a menu with the instrument's serial number. If you click on it, you'll want to go down to Instrument Calibration. In the top left corner, we'll select RH0, and it tells you to read the manual or watch this video, and you'll want to click on Begin RH0 Calibration. This is showing the relative humidity readings for reference and sample, as well as graphs that you can edit by pressing the pencil icon in the top right corner. You can edit them so that you can see the minimum and maximum relative humidities. I usually set that to -1 as a minimum and +1 as a maximum, with a large time span, the X size value. 300 seconds should be adequate. Essentially, now that we have the instrument running, we're looking at the graph to make sure that the relative humidities drop sufficiently close to 0 and are also stable. Another thing you'll want to do is to ensure that the pump is on. It should be on by default, but just to make sure, you can click Turn Pump On and Turn Blower On as well. This makes sure that the air is circulating from the desiccant into the instrument. So you'll want to watch these graphs and make sure that they reach an asymptote, sort of level off. Once they're stable, which may take 30 minutes, then you will click the 0 button for both the reference and the sample. This will actually set your instrument calibration to 0 when it's seeing this dry air. Once you've performed this relative humidity 0 calibration, you can exit this menu, put the instrument back together, including putting the buffer beads back into the instrument and putting the shells back on before making measurements. So that is how you do a calibration. Once you're finished, Make sure that you put the instrument back together completely as it was, including replacing the buffer beads if you've taken those out, replacing the leaf clamp if you've taken that out, and putting the shells back on the sides of the instrument. Now you're ready to go make measurements. There are several other videos on our support site about the LI-600 and other instruments. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know or contact our distributors around the world. Thanks for watching.